So thank you, Sam. That was wonderful. First off, I want to thank Sam and Deloitte for their support. They're being a partner and a sponsor of the America's Future Series National Security Dual Use Technology Summit. And I want to thank Dr. Lau for coming on. And I think everyone probably agrees, recognizes that NASA is a national treasure. It's a world treasure. What they do, what they contribute to our economy, our way of life, our life standard of living, et cetera. And just our general knowledge of the universe is fantastic. And so, yes, everyone support NASA. And we want to thank Dr. Lau for all the great work that she and her colleagues are doing. So with that, we're going to continue sort of the space theme. We're going to bring in Ken Peterman. He's going to have a great conversation with Major General Olson, John Olson of Space Force. I'm going to turn it over to Ken, and I think you all will enjoy this conversation.
Well, thank you, David. It's a real treat today to be able to speak to Major General John Olson, United States Air Force. He is the lead for the Joint All-Domain Command and Control, JADC2, as well as for ABMS, the Advanced Battle Management System. He's the lead for the Space Force for that. Actually, his role is as the mobilization assistant to the Chief of Space Operations, Headquarters United States Space Force at the Pentagon. He assists the CSO with responsibility to organize, train, and equip the Space Forces, develop and acquire military space systems, and conduct space operations to advance and protect the U.S. and our allied interests. He serves on the Office of Secretary of Defense Operational Energy Innovation Technical Advisory Group. He flies as an Airborne Emergency Action Officer on the Looking Glass Airborne Nuclear Command Post, leading strategic deterrence missions. He's an Air Force Academy graduate, 5 engineering degrees, including 2 bachelor degrees from the U.S. Air Force Academy, master's degrees in engineering from the University of Illinois and the University of Tennessee, and a doctorate in systems engineering from Auburn University. A very impressive resume. John, it's good to see you again. How are you?
Hey, it's great to speak with you too, Mr. Peterman, and looking forward to the discussion.
Great. Well, we'll get started. I think we're all aware of the Space Force and the progress that has been made since its birth. Recently, the Space Force welcomed its 2nd service chief in November and turned 3 years old in December. Can you talk through the state of the force and the Space Force's current focus areas?
You bet. Yes, it's an exciting time for us. We're out of the terrible twos into the 3rd anniversary here, and it is definitely an important build year for us. We're actively driving to implement the Chief of Space Operations lines of efforts, and those really fall in 3 primary areas. And those include combat ready forces, so being able to outcompete our rivals, deter our aggressors, and defeat our enemies. The way we do that is by training combat ready and combat capable forces that are validated with tactics and techniques and procedures and training across the board. And this is, again, spanning that spectrum from competition through crisis to conflict. We have to be prepared for all those realities. But I think that starts also with integrated deterrence. Integrated deterrence is fundamentally important to our overall strategic approach. As we look at the National Defense Strategy, it really outlines 3 different ways, or 3 primary ways for the department to meet our priorities. It's integrated deterrence first, campaigning, and then building enduring advantages throughout. And so as we look at more of that first line of effort, the combat ready forces for the Space Force, we're pivoting to resilient and effective architectures. And what that really means is we've got a lot more proliferated on-orbit constellations, multi-levels of orbits, also looking at ground stations, networks, data, and mission critical support facilities. And it's about building and driving, as the first service born digital, a digital savvy workforce, operations, headquarters that's digitally based, in a digital engineering ecosystem. Those 4 primary lines of efforts are the way we're getting after that. But it's also having a data-centric culture, because we know that things happen. Space is intrinsically hard, but it's also fast. As we look at orbital velocities at 17,000 miles an hour, it's truly, with cyber being core to everything that we do, things happen at the speed of light, if you will. That's the speed of electrons. So it is an important part of our ethos. And part of that also includes having the requisite space test and training ranges because we need to develop those training and doctrine implementations along with our TTPs, our tactics, techniques, and procedures, along with the operational test and training infrastructure that goes along with that. The second line of effort is really our guardian spirit. And, we have the guardian ideal, which is an aspirational set of values that drive what it means to serve and lives one's life as a guardian. But we also want to inculcate a field of force that's creative, that's innovative, problem solving oriented, with the tools and the structures and the resources and the authorities through mission command, where we delegate that to the lowest level practicable, and we can implement that. And I think, as we have our new chief of space operations, General Saltzman, having taken over from the first chief of space operations, this third year is really an important time where he can place his mark and his commander's intent on the force. So that's a key part of our focus. And as we look at what it takes to be a member of the Space Force, we also want our folks to, as we already talked about, being digitally savvy and being data centric, but we want an agile, lean organization that's committed to continuous process improvement and certainly in operations, but across the business enterprise. And so I think that starts from day one. And finally, it is a strong mix. We have our full-time active duty personnel, we have our civilian guardian personnel, but we also have our reserve and guard personnel, and collectively, with 28% of space operations being done by the Air Force Reserve, this is an important part of the overall total equation that we're bringing to that. And then finally, it's about partnering to win, and that is building the rich and vibrant and diverse and deep partnerships that will be based on trust and mutually beneficial relationships. And so that includes our industry partners, certainly our joint services, our allies, and coalition partners, because this is, as we've seen with Ukraine, absolutely critical to competition, integrated deterrence, and a very capable combat force when necessary. So that's really the three lines of effort that we're driving towards, and I think we are working vigorously every day to bring those to fruition.
Yeah, that's evident in everything you do. You can see the high energy, you can see the intense focus. The three lines of effort are obviously tightly coupled and have to operate in a synchronous way. And in fact, probably contribute significantly to things like JADC2. So you're also in the role as the lead for the Joint All-Domain Command and Control, JADC2, for the Air Force and the Space Force. I know you're very involved in technologies like AI. Can you tell us some of the recent critical efforts underway on JADC2?
Well, you bet. As we talk about Joint All-Domain Command and Control, it is a huge effort. It's the ability to sense, make sense, and act across all the domains, air, land, sea, surface, subsurface, space, cyber, in an adversarial, contested environment, and doing so at the speed of relevance. And so as we look at that, it sounds pretty simple, but it's an incredibly complex and challenging effort and activity. And of course, it's joint by design. And so as we look at this, I'm fortunate enough to have a couple of great partners. Indeed, I do lead the Department of the Air Force's co-lead. I am the Space Force operations lead for that side of the equation of the Advanced Battle Management System, or ABMS. And so ABMS, which is, we have an ABMS cross-functional team that's led by Brigadier General Jeff Spaniard Valencia. He and I are the ops co-lead for Air and Space Force respectively, and we are partnered as we do across all the Secretary of the Air Force's operational imperatives, with an acquisition and a technical side as well. And that's a newly appointed Brigadier General Luke Cropsey is the integrating PEO for C3BM, or Command Control Communications and Battle Management. And so that's really a roll-up of 5 PEO areas, and he is that one singular acquisition roll-up. And so you've got operations, plus acquisition. And then along with the acquisition is the technical side. Dr. Brian Tipton is the chief architect and chief engineer and chief systems integrator for General Cropsey in that C3BM effort and activity. So collectively, driven by the Secretary of the Air Force's operational imperatives, which there's 7 plus 3 enablers, and this is season 2 or year 2 for us. We rolled those out last year. General Valencia and I co-led OI2, which is operationally optimized JADC2 and ABMS. We started that last year. We're building on that foundation, and that really underpins the Department of the Air Force's approach or contributions to JADC2. But when we step back and we look at our our pacing challenger or pacing competitor and the scenario that we're focusing on with China and the Indo-PACOM theater being that focus, as we look at that, joint all-domain command and control is critical to operating in the modern environment, and I think that's why the Secretary of the Air Force has been so focused on ensuring that we have this as the underlying foundation for all of these operational imperatives. And I think as we look at that, it's really a systems of systems approach. It is definitely a concept. ABMS is as very much as a program element with PE numbers, and it is also an enduring contribution in a joint sense. So it's many things to many people. The way we're making sense of that and driving a level of clarity and progress is taking these operational pacing scenarios, driving joint mission threads and vignettes that really focus this and put the O in the operational imperatives. And then we're systematically informing our POM inputs. We're systematically informing our future investments. And so these are the top priority drivers for the Department of the Air Force. Within the Space Force, we've recognized that the tyranny of distance, the first and second island change, the tremendous distances involved, and the very fact that we're viewing China as a pure economy, as a pure national security enterprise, it is a contested environment. And when you look at that with China plus Russia plus North Korea and Iran, this is a global, a complex global challenge for us. And so we're trying to stay focused and drive prioritization, but also ensure that we have the resiliency in our space architectures, because we know that position, navigation, timing, communication, space data transport, and weapons and targeting are crucial to all the services. Much like strategic airlift is crucial to getting all of our forces to the theater of operations, so too is space data transport in an environment where high value airborne assets or other fixed relay and nodal links in this overall network are perhaps static targets. And so they in a high end conflict, we expect that we will need more distributed command and control. And that's also a big driver between shifting to a wartime posture from a peacetime posture and agile combat employment, and which we call ACE. And so these are all the principles. And as we drive and do the functional decomposition of what it takes to do command and control and battle management and planning in this modern joint coalition environment, that is exactly what's driving the requirements, and in turn driving a very accelerated level of modernization, development, improvement, and then testing and evaluation. And so much like the Navy with Project Overmatch and the Army with Project Convergence, when we see ABMS, Overmatch, and Convergence all participating in these joint theater and these joint exercises and the capabilities, that's how we're going to make the informed gains and lessons learned and continue to have an integrated a loop of advancement here.
The complexity of the problem set is significant. The complexity of the threat vectors. You talked about joint mission threads and vignettes. You talk about the system of systems. The complexity is enormous. Is there a role, or what do you see as the role for artificial intelligence across JADC2? How are you employing artificial intelligence, and how is it contributing?
Well, I'm really glad you asked that question. I spent last year, for all of 2022, I was fortunate enough to be the Department of the Air Force's first Chief Data and AI Officer. And, I did that in addition to doing my my Space Force JADC2 and ABMS roles, and indeed it was crushing. But I did it for a reason, because as we look at this, we've already discussed it, but data is at the core of everything that we do here. We need to have a data-centric culture in terms of that ability to make sense and act at the speed of relevance. It ultimately, across all those domains, it must be machine-to-machine speed, because right now, as we look at as we look at our current capability set, it simply takes too long. Our kill chains or our kill webs or our kill meshes take too long, and they're way too manually intensive, and they're also way too dependent upon single nodes like a combined air and space operations center, or a high value airborne asset like an AWACS or a Joint Stars. As we look at a much more proliferated and disaggregated and resilient and effective architecture system, we know that we have to have machine-to-machine speed, and our adversaries also realize that. And so it is at the core, you got to have data, because data, if you don't get data right to begin with, it's 80 to 85% of AI ML readiness, and so you got to start with the foundations. That's having metadata tagging, data at rest, data at motion, that is having structured, semi-structured, and unstructured data, that's doing provenance and data integrity validation, because we know that there's going to be active efforts to interfere with those data streams. Likewise, along with training data sets, they can be brittle, and also our algorithms, they need to be protected. So cybersecurity almost in a 3D chess game here. And as we look at that zero trust and ICAM, or identity credentials and access management, they're fundamentally important at the data and user level to ensure that our joint partners, that our industry partners, that our coalition partners, and academia, everybody can cooperate in a whole of nation approach, in an alliance and coalition approach. Again, as we saw in Ukraine, that's critical to do so at the speed of need. And much like Ukraine, even though it's a very kinetic, current, acute, kinetic war, some would say a war of attrition, I think it's also been a fundamental paradigm changer. It's the first war of cognition, and I think it will set the will set the foundation at a new level forever, because now we have 21st century modern information technologies and tools, and we've seen the tremendous impact of industry. And so just if I say three industry partners alone, if you look at Starlink and the contributions there, plus Maxar with electro-optic satellite imagery, and then Capella Space with synthetic aperture radar, the profound impacts of collectively being able to collect, process, and share that at an unclassified level has been profound, because it is the David and Goliath leveler against the Russians. And I think both the United States and certainly China, we're absolutely viewing this and harvesting the lessons learned and the knowledge gained, and it's going to shape and inform even more so than had we not had this. And so as we look forward, your question is a very good one. How is AI going to shape that? Well, it's going to, I think it's nothing less than the statement: the nation that leads in AI will lead the world. It's absolutely true. When we look at the incredible impacts, we've seen ChatGPT come out from OpenAI. Look at the incredible speed with which folks have been looking at and adopting that. The scope and scale of its impacts, I think, are only beginning to be registered. But this is one of several applications, whether it's natural language processing or generative image work through synthetic. One example is global synthetic weather radar. We're working with our MIT AI accelerator and making tremendous progress there, because as we've learned, we don't have a lot of islands. We don't have a lot of weather radars that are feeding that integrated picture. So we leverage all of our capabilities, fuse those into a global synthetic weather radar picture. So that's just one of probably thousands of examples where really complex data analytics and AI ML techniques across the spectrum are being applied. I think what's also exciting and critically important is, as we look at this, we know our space data transport is going to be challenged. We know that even with our resilient and effective architectures, that we need to have primary, alternate, contingency, and emergency or PACE type capabilities to add that resilience and effectiveness in terms of the overall enterprise. How we're looking at that is we now are looking at edge node computing, whether it be airborne edge node, which is one of the ABMS key acquisition lines of effort. We call that capability release 1. Initially it was a KC-46 tanker and a pod, but we're looking at additional fighter aircraft borne pods, and we're looking at really the concept of an edge node, and with the improvements in graphical process units or GPUs, we now have the capability to do a lot more in situ processing and analytics, and that even at the speed of need, where we're transferring things at the speed of light, it is time consuming to send them back to the United States from that theater. So if we can do edge node processing, if we can have common operating pictures or user defined operating pictures and inform the localized command and control and battle management, that's really where we're trying to drive. And so having a systems engineering degree, for my doctorate has been both a boon in realizing that this is a large systems engineering problem, but this is a wicked hard, continually evolving challenge that will involve the very best of our nation in industry and academia, and we're also absolutely forging and partnering to win in the coalition and alliance side. So we're not alone. Silicon Valley and the rest of the innovation ecosystem has done wonders with AI and ML capabilities. I think we need to continue to further harness those as we move forward.
Yeah, so you've talked about this being the first war of cognition. You've talked about the value of data. There's an enormity of data of different modalities that ultimately has to be fused together, because we're trying to draw actionable insight and convert that data to information that is trusted, that we can move on. Part of that's going to involve people. In January, you mentioned that in order to be AI ready by 2025, the US Air Force and the Space Force must invest to train and retrain a skilled workforce and develop a strong digital infrastructure. How are we progressing on that front? And from your perspective, what do we need to do to be AI ready by 2025?
Well, that's a huge effort for us. It's really a two-part one. We laid out being AI ready by 2025 and AI competitive by 2027. And really, it's the outcome, the 2027, that really matters. The rest is the foundational underpinnings to enable that. Why did we do that? Well, we know that President Xi Jinping of China has laid out as a national objective for China to lead the world in AI by 2030. And we also know that as we look at the criticality, as we've discussed already with Joint All-Domain Command and Control, as we talked about our integrated deterrence, as we talked about national competitiveness in a global great power economic and security challenge environment, we know that being AI ready, which is having the infrastructure, the training, the capabilities, the training data sets, the algorithms, the broad enterprise IT and IS infrastructure, all of that is much easier said than done. And frankly, I think with the establishment of last year, they had their full operational capability stand up at the beginning of June of 2022. The Office of Secretary of Defense Chief Digital and AI Office was established to lead the digital transformation, to also drive and imbue this AI leadership. At the Department of the Air Force Chief Data and AI Office, which I led last year, and it's now being led by Ms. Eileen Vidrine, we implement and amplify that broader OSD guidance, and that OSD guidance is also squarely focused on not just the services, but also the combatant commands, and ensuring that we're being responsive to their truly daunting and demanding needs. As we look at, NORAD Northcom, it's defend the homeland is the #1 priority. As we look at Indo-PACOM, of course, China is the pacing threat, and that's a real challenge there. As we look at the current acute situation with European Command, we've got the very active Ukraine war now over a year in length. And so as we look at this and across the tapestry of the others, realizing that U.S. Cyber Command, we've got another upcoming election in 2024. We've seen the criticality of having safe and protected democratic elections across not just the United States, but the world. How foundational is that to our very existence? Similarly, in space, let's look at Space Command. We know that cyber and space are likely the first areas of conflict because they're so critical to everything that either of us do. So I think it's very important to be postured for integrated deterrence and competition, as well as being ready to execute the full extent of our capabilities there to protect and defend U.S. and allied interests. So as we look at this, I think it's really important that we get the people side right. Being AI ready by 2025, every day that goes by that we're not doing something to advance that, whether inside the service and services and Department of Defense, or whether in collaboration with industry, where the nexus, where the rate and pace of development and learning and discovery and truly incredible capabilities are advancing at a mind-numbing rate. This ties into almost a daily 1-hour responsibility to read and stay abreast of the latest evolutions, to also know how those can be tailored and applied, to leverage, to foster a risk-taking environment, one that drives innovation, one that drives learning in a safe and acceptable environment, because an incremental approach is not going to get us there. We're going to have to take step functions and leaps. We're going to have to accept risk, and we're going to have to take smart risk. And that involves a thinking, agile, enlightened workforce at every echelon. We're leveraging prolific at echelon education, digital university. We're leveraging our MIT AI Accelerator for tapping into the MIT's open AI learning environment and the Horizon capabilities. We've got lots of classes in data and AI. We're doing those at the Navy Postgraduate School, Stanford University, MIT. We're doing it at Johns Hopkins University. So this is part of the in-class and part of the digital learning that particularly in the Space Force is so core to a digitally savvy service. And so as the first service born digital, that's a core part of the ethos. We need to imbue and spread that across the department, across the Department of the Air Force and the Department of Defense. But again, people are always and will remain the core of that. And that also includes evolving and creating an environment where the tasks for which humans are uniquely suited are the ones that we use data and automation and all the tools that we have available to enhance the productivity and capability of our people. We're not supplanting them. We need everyone that we've got, and we need more. It's really about making them better, making them smarter, more capable, more efficient, more effective, and more lethal.
So people are at the core. People are at the nexus. You've made that clear. I couldn't agree with you more, and it's great that we recognize that and are doing all those things. I'm going to go back. You said something about China. With China's push to be a world leader in AI by 2030, can you talk about what else the United States needs to do to maintain strategic advantage?
Well, that is a critical question that we need to be having a national discussion on, because I think given the prolific communications and the information that we've been sharing, and I think indeed the information that I think everyone sees at the personal level, they've seen that this is the 21st century age of information, right? And so that underpins every facet of our lives. And as such, it's very important that we take a whole of nation approach. I think the richness and diversity of our populace, the passionate discourse that we have, that makes our AI models, that makes our efforts and activities sometimes a little bit more challenging to do, but in the end, they're more resilient, they're more solid, they're more based on enduring inclusive elements. Similarly, I think we need to fully leverage our industrial base. We need to stimulate and foster through incentive structures, through R&D tax credits, through a litany, indemnification, I believe is another excellent tool. We need to leverage every tool in the book. We need to leverage large, medium, and small industry, traditional, non-traditional, because I think the nexus of innovation that spans boundaries is where some of the greatest breakthroughs are occurring. I think we also need to pull on and drive a sense of accountability and responsibility. This goes from the individual level for cyber hygiene and security to learning and knowing about the moral ethical issues. I mean, responsible AI is absolutely critical to what we're doing. The Deputy Secretary of Defense and Secretary of Defense have said, hey, we're going to do responsible AI or we aren't going to do it at all. And what that really means is that it's got to be, since it's such an essential part of what we're doing, it's got to be done right. And so when we start talking the training data sets, when we start talking about the human in the loop versus human on the loop, as we shift to more machine to machine speed activities, making sure that we have all the elements and the 5 DoD ethical principles at the core center of our acquisition activities, at the core center of our training and development. And that doesn't mean taking a complete hands-off. In fact, this is a very hands-on approach, an engaged approach. Testing and verification and validation are fundamentally important. This is both developmental testing and operational testing. So again, just to recap, we got to have general knowledge and learning. We got to incentivize our industrial base. We need to generate and foster a STEM pipeline and a STEAM pipeline in our schools. That starts all the way down at primary and kindergarten. You capture people early. We want the richness and diversity of ideas and inputs, and so we need to be fostering that. And I would proffer a national human capital plan that recognizes the criticality to our economy, health, and national security, founded on technology, is so very important. But we also need to, in addition to industry and education, and incentives and jobs, we need to create the partnership. We need protection of intellectual property, but we also need to have the ability to ensure vibrant competition, so we aren't stuck with vendor lock, or so we don't have kind of groupthink or a sole dependency, because nothing is worse in a modern adversarial environment than a single dependency or a single fault vulnerability. So diversity, richness, industry, whole of nation approach, education throughout at all levels. And I think much like we do, it's preparation, it's national preparation. We all grew up doing tornado drills. Many of us did nuclear drills and other things. How often are we doing how are we teaching cyber hygiene, and how are we teaching the vulnerabilities of deep fakes and the negative side of artificial intelligence, or the negative consequences of GPT gone wrong? And so I think as we look at those, it will help us be better human stewards, better responsibility stewards. But much like we have responsible AI, we also need robust AI and resilient AI. I think if we don't have those 3 R's, much like the 3 R's of reading, writing, arithmetic, we won't be where we need to be. So we started this with the 2025 and being ready. This is what it's going to take. Are we there yet? No, we are not. Are we getting there? We have a sirens call here. We're communicating it. We're putting lots of programs in effect, but we need to need to get engaged as a nation, and we need to realize fully the scope of the existential challenges and competition before us. We need to be in it like we want to win it, because this is for the 21st century and beyond, the key determining decade. The president said it in the National Defense Strategy that this is the decisive decade. I believe that the nation, again, that leads in AI will lead the world, but you lead in AI through data at the start, and the modern world demands it. And if we look at it, I think we got tremendous opportunities ahead. I'm very excited about our probability of success, but it's going to take diligent, consistent work every single day, and it's a team sport.
Yeah, it's a team sport for sure. It clearly calls for a national campaign at a national level that comes all the way to every one of us, touches every one of us. As you know, because we've talked before, and I've been engaged in this community for a long time. I've been an advocate of hybrid architectures, hybrid space architectures specifically. And I think you mentioned that the U.S. needs a resilient, robust, couple more R's there for you. The U.S. needs a resilient, robust space highway. And you said a key component of that will be a resilient, robust hybrid space architecture. Can you talk a little bit about where we stand today with respect to the space highway and the this robust hybrid space architecture?
Yeah, I'd love to. I think I absolutely stand by those words. A hybrid space architecture means a couple of different things. It's government and commercial, and that government can be also national security, intelligence community. It can be civil space, and it from a commercial perspective, it can be domestic, and it can be international partners and allies as well. And it also is both physical and it's digital. And I think it's absolutely imperative to our success in space. As we look at the launch market, right now, commercial launches are 90% of the nation's launch manifest, and our rates are expected to increase another 300% by 2040. Just last year alone, Cape Canaveral and Kennedy Space Center was the most active space center in the world in 2022. It is an exciting time. We expect to go from 61 launches to 99 to 300 or 400 in the not so distant future. That is truly tremendous, but that's only one part of the equation. That's the launch side of the equation. And I think we've seen, starting with my time at NASA, where we did commercial crew and cargo and commercial crew development and the precursor capabilities, we went from having less than 2% of the world's launch market to now having 98+% of the world's commercial launch market. We've driven reusability. I think these are just exemplars of the tremendous capability when you smartly stimulate and incentivize a robust U.S. industrial base that has competition at its core. Everyone wins in that, and I think that's what we're trying to harness for the in-space capability. Just last year, you saw the United States national policy come out on orbital debris remediation, as well as in-space servicing and assembly, in-space servicing, assembly, and manufacturing, or ISAM. We in the DoD call that space access, mobility, and launch, logistics, SAML, space access, mobility, and logistics as a core space power tenet. But whether you call it SAML or whether you call it ISAM, NASA's program has had a long-running program on on-orbit servicing, assembly, and manufacturing, or OSAM. Whatever you call it, that is going to be what enables and unleashes the true economic potential and capability of low Earth orbit. We now have the affordable launch. We now have the technology. We now have the rich investment ecosystem and the financial wherewithal to have a rich and vibrant system there. I think as we look at it, we will see a $1 trillion space economy as we leverage fully leverage low Earth orbit, as we fully leverage cislunar space, the moon and Mars and beyond. And this is not fanciful scientific, sci-fi futuristic. This is here and now. When we look at those capabilities, when we look at the ISAM potential, it is all about a hybrid space architecture that needs to ensure the rules of the road, ensure standards and interoperability, ensure the risk equation for the businesses that will invest is fertile and suitable. Having spent a decade in industry, it is vitally important that the ROI be there, and that those things, as they have needed to be throughout history, are protected and defended. So space domain awareness is a vital element of that. Communications and navigation. We need an internet in space, and those aren't going to be provided solely by the government. In fact, they need to be and are better, more resilient, and more capable, as we've seen by just the explosive growth of the proliferated low Earth orbit constellations for Starlink, OneWeb, Kuiper, and so many more. The Chinese are actively planning several mega constellations as well. So this is a golden moment, but we also got to be smart with our policies and with our active implementation on the global level, because I believe that space traffic management and the management of orbital debris is so vitally important to ensuring that we have albeit a contested and challenged space environment, one that has some order and structure and norms and behaviors that are that are consistent with a global rules-based, law-based order.
Yeah, so we are seeing, as you mentioned, a large number of new entrants in the space industry, from launch to satellite service providers. We've got commercial industry starting to look at space stations, cislunar engagement, all of that. Okay, and so number one, I think that is really, you're right. We're unleashing industry in order to help us address the problem and maintain leadership across the board in these areas. What do you see government doing right that we need to keep doing? What do you see maybe that we need to do that we're not doing now in terms of government collaborating with these industry partners in the future? You mentioned indemnification, you mentioned a variety of other things. What do you, just as a last question, because I know a lot of our audience is from industry, how do you see government collaboration with industry partners going forward?
Well, I think communication is essential, right? We recently had a couple-day meeting on CASR, which is the space reserve concept, much like CRAF, the Civil Reserve Air Fleet. That's one example of great interaction. We just recently had the FAA's ComStack meeting, where we're getting the voice of industry and the user community, and we're being informed by that in the government side. I think that rich level of engagement is essential. I think we need more cross-flow. People have walked in both shoes and led, because if you've grown up government your whole life and you've never had P&L responsibility, you've never walked in those shoes, you may think you understand it, but you absolutely don't have the same level as having exactly done that. Likewise, I think we need to make sure that we're making the investments and the partnerships something that's palatable and viable. As Honorable Cal Velli, the Undersecretary of the Space for Acquisition and Integration, or the Service Acquisition Executive for Space, has said, we need to drive simplification. We need to have shorter cycles. We need to have more fertile competition. And I think those are great, important attributes. I would also proffer that we need stable requirements. We need the government to act as an anchor customer, a stimulant in some areas. We also need to act as a driver of common standards and interoperability, help lead and forge that, so the U.S. industry and our partners and allies can lead the world in that. And I think, as we've seen, where we've done that throughout history has yielded incredible dividends. Where we see that, we find ourselves in a very unpalatable, unenviable position. And so I think that's logical. What that means is this is a cooperation with both sides of Pennsylvania Avenue, the White House and the Congress, and the executive and the legislative, ensuring that we have stable requirements, we have stable funding, we don't overclassify things, because I think we have a strong propensity to do that. Those three issues, stability of funding, stability of requirements, and driving less classification, will absolutely stimulate this more. I think that's necessary, but not sufficient. I think we need to continue. We're coming up on our fourth State of the Space Industrial Base report. I think that is an opportunity for people to provide really unvarnished input in a joint government report that really is the voice of customer. Last year we had 253 inputs. I think that richness leads to better outcomes. We are listening, and we will absolutely convert. I think there's also a responsibility. I think we need to make sure that the markets, I think we were a little bit frothy in the SPAC market, and I think we've had some retrenching and retraction there. But by no means do I think that this is going to be a long-term tamper on investment. I think we're only beginning to reach the tip of the iceberg here. I think as we look at that, we need to ensure that we have resiliency and that we have competitive architecture. We want to drive lower costs. We want to purchase. I think this is foundational for another acquisition approach. The Space Force, writ large, we want to leverage what we already have to the maximum extent practical. So we want smart, innovative solutions to leverage what we already got. But then we want to buy whatever we can and only build what we must. So as we put that out there and buy services and capability, we also need to be mindful of surge capacity for contingency needs and operations, and that's where that CASR, that concept has some merit. We need much more rapid development cycles, because we know the rate and pace of tech change is mind-numbing, and that's in data and AI and algorithms and capabilities. That's on orbit compute, edge node computing, from space, transport, optical comms, crosslinks, all of it. You name it, all of that is going to be driven by academia and industry. And then it's about transitioning that through the valley of death. I think we're not fast enough. The SBIRR, the SBIR pathways, the AFWorks and the SpaceWorks, those are nice. We need to imbue the innovation culture across more fully. We need to continue to support those. I think we need to fully embrace Honorable Calavelli's principles. I think they are smart and right. And I think in so doing, we will then organically expand and improve the health and diversification of our space industrial base. And we need to look and strategically partner. There's some extraordinary work going on around the world, and our partners and allies are so critical to that. I think we don't have a lock on the best ideas here, and so we need to make sure that there's conduits for those. We're bridging again that valley of death, and that's an area that's a perennial challenge. And having been on the outside too, I realize sometimes how challenging it is and how slow it is to engage with the government. We've simply got to fix that. And that's, again, education, and it's active work on both sides. And I think forums like this, where we can probe the issues, don't just hit the superfluous wave tops, but really drive into the substantive dialogue, and then take those and drive actionable impacts where we're holding ourselves accountable, where we have metrics that measure, and we're holding the feet to the fire in a collective spans of control. Then we will succeed. And I think success here is essential. As we mentioned earlier, we must lead the world in space, and we must lead the world in AI, and that starts with data, and that starts with people first and foremost. And so I've really enjoyed the opportunity to talk on this breadth and diverse set of topics. Look forward to the next time.
John, thank you so much. I'm comprehensive in scope, insightful in terms of the value of your comments, really helpful. David, I'm going to get ready to toss it back to you, David Hamilton, but I want to say thank you to my friend John Olson, Major General John Olson, PhD, the lead for Space Force lead for Joint All-Domain Command and Control and Advanced Battle Management Systems, known as JADC2 and ABMS, and formerly the Mobilization Assistant to the Chief of Space Operations. Again, thank you very much, General. It's been a pleasure hearing your thoughts and engaging with you. David, back to you.
Well, thank you, Ken. That's fantastic. That was it was a brilliant capstone, sort of the closing keynote discussion between the two of you. Really appreciate it. Appreciate you doing that. Appreciate your being our patron sponsor, and appreciate Major General John Olson joining us. And I thought, Ken, while we have you, and we did run a little long, apologize for that, but would love for you to share sort of your closing thoughts on the entire day, where you see where we are, and any other remarks that you'd like to give to sort of close us out.
Sure. Let me just check here. I'm not muted, am I, David? You got me?
Good to go.
I think American Future Series is a national treasure. It provides an opportunity for a thoughtful discourse on really important and compelling issues. I thought the agenda today was thoughtful. We started with Rudyard Lynch on the rise and fall of America. And I thought that was a really good way to set the tone at a high level. We moved to Bon Gumhad, who talked about modernizing the joint force, the great job we're doing on that. But he also talked about the fact that, in our civilian space, we're moving to a next generation 911 public safety capability that enables not just human to human, but the machine to machine public safety engagement. And our military bases and our young men and women in uniform need that same capability. And I think we're lagging on that. And so we need to address that. We moved to zero trust in defense and commercial sectors. General David Petraeus was absolutely stunning. Jared Shepard was good too. I think that he has a capability and a technology that I think is cutting edge. We moved to generative AI. Nina Schick is, again, I think a national treasure. I've read her books. She's really interesting, talking about how every aspect of society will be impacted by artificial intelligence. They talked about the accessibility of AI. They talked about ChatGPT. They talked about how people are experimenting with it and finding ways to use it. And I think that is a compelling discussion that I was really interested in. The Radegui Award presentation and the remarks, of course, our COO at Comtech, Maria Hedden, led the charge there with General Keith Alexander, Lieutenant General Harry Radegui. They presented this to Palmer Luckey. Palmer Luckey is a national treasure. People like that only come along once in a while, and we know a few of them, and they have been awardees associated with AFS and for a number of years. But Palmer Luckey is fantastic, and I think that he talked about finding your passion being important, but also finding a calling that has a noble purpose so that history will remember you in terms of making a contribution to the nation and to the world. We moved to a really compelling tech talk in terms of the acceleration of and commercialization of 5G advanced, 6G. Maria Hedden talked with Anirban Chakouri, our chief growth officer, as well as Robert Frederick. Robert Frederick is another individual kind of in the Palmer Luckey vein that is a national treasure with regard to his technology expertise. He's got 44 patents. He's been involved in Bluetooth, Amazon Anywhere. He's been involved in what we now know as Alexa. And I think that we talked about the physical and digital coexistence, digital twinning. And I think that is a compelling conversation that is thought-provoking for all of us. So, not to drag on and on, I thought it was a really good conference, David. I thought you chaired it really well. Frankly, the National Security Dual Use Technology Summit is a fantastic forum for us to discuss how the United States can maintain a strategic advantage in today's technology-driven society. We talked about how in today's global environment, is more important than ever before for us to ensure we put the most advanced technologies and capabilities in the hands of our warfighters, our young men and women in uniform, our own sons and daughters, so that they can be informed, protected, they can be situationally aware and connected. I hope you come away from this summit with not only valuable insights, but also actions that the people and the organizations that participate in this can put into practice to help our industry, to help our partners, to help our customers, to help our country succeed in this very competitive landscape that we're in. David, thank you for enabling this event. Comtech is pleased to be your sponsor. It's great to be here. Thank you for all you do and for all America's Future Series is doing to organize such a fantastic event.
Well, thank you. Well, thank you. There's one thing that I don't think should go unnoticed, which is by your patronage and us being able to do this, we've put people together. A lot of the people that spoke to today got to know each other in the calls beforehand, setting up what they were going to talk about, et cetera. There's an ecosystem that goes on. And because of your support, we're able to put these people together. And I can't tell you the number of people that were here today who said, oh, we need to do that. And they're going to follow up with each other. They're going to do business together. They're going to support our military. They're going to invent and create and innovate. And it's because we create an opportunity for people smarter than me to get together and find common ground and find solutions for common problems.
Yeah, it's a venue and a discussion that results in action. And the action is what it's all about. You're exactly right.
Well, thank you. Hope you have a wonderful evening. Thanks for staying with us so late. Good night, everyone, and look for us down the road. We'll keep you apprised of our next event. And Ken, you're going to be helping us honor General Raymond of the Space Force with General Hyten.
I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to that. What a tough job to be the very first chief for the Space Force. I think that's a fantastic opportunity. I'm looking forward to it. Thanks, David.
Take care. Have a great evening.